Hey guys, I'm Bartol if you're new here, and in today's video, I actually want to take a step back and talk about two people that have always been by my side, or I guess in my ear or on my screen, throughout my time at school and Oxford. Embarrassingly, I do have to admit that I did have a phase where I couldn't really fall asleep unless I was re-listening to, for the fourth time, one of their podcast episodes. I did have to sort of wean myself off this habit though, because my mom threatened to tell my grandma that I fell asleep listening to two dudes. That was a tough phase of life. On a serious note though, this little video is an homage to Ali and Taimur, two great inspirations who have, and I think I can definitively say this, shaped my late teens and early 20s. Now that's a good guest introduction, right? Take notes, I'm kidding. But let me take you back to where this journey starts. And as fate would have it, it starts in St. Albans. Now, unbeknownst to me at the time, Ali and Taimur grew up in St. Albans as well. I spent my secondary school years there. As I explained in a previous video, my family is Croatian, but I was born and raised in Dubai, and I lived there for nearly 10 years. I then lived and went to school in Croatia for 2 years, and then landed in sunny England, in St. Albans, just in time for year 7. I went to my neighborhood school and did my GCSEs there. Now, as probably with most kids my age, one day I was recommended one of Ali's videos. In fact, it was the evidence-based study techniques video, which I did recently have a go at recreating myself. But I can safely say that this video unequivocally changed the way I approached studying and school. Now, I was already quite the nerd, immigrant parents and all that. I did well in my GCSEs and I was doing my A-levels at that point and even thinking of applying to Oxford. Watching Ali's videos was a huge source of inspiration. He was relatable. Ali went to Cambridge, he studied medicine, and he presented himself as this friendly yet successful guy. I have always trained football, and at that point I was training swimming 6 times a week. And so I couldn't really turn to Ali for advice on this aspect of life. Sorry Ali, I know you've been banging gym for the last couple of years. But Ali's videos did fill a void in an educational sort of sense. No one around me was really applying to Oxbridge or keen to really study. So he was my main source of inspiration. Until I met Taimur. Well, I didn't really meet Taimur. I actually made it my goal to just meet him one day by bumping into him in my university holidays in St. Albans by studying in the High Street Cafe Nero. But I never saw him. He was a mysterious guy, as I came to realize through the podcast. He wasn't like his brother. He was reserved and a bit quiet, until he let out his famous laugh. And this brings me to the podcast. My favorite podcast of all time, and a complete masterpiece, if I may say so myself. The Not Overthinking podcast. When I found out Ali and Taimur were going to make a podcast together, I did have my doubts. It's just two brothers talking about whatever they found interesting that week, but it was game-changing. The first episodes were insane. I remember during COVID, I would be mowing the lawn or going for a run, probably searching for Taimur and just listening to these guys. They talked about things I'd never thought of before, and other things that I had thought about myself, but they did this in the most approachable way possible. The way they talked was not like in books where ideas are fully formed and edited 5 times before writing them in the most concise way. Their episodes would start with a raw idea, and slowly, through the hour-long podcast, they would pick at it and test it until they reached either a dead end or a pretty decent way of thinking about it. And this style of conversation where points are brought up and then mulled over and then realized that they're a bit silly or have holes in them and then discarded. This style of thinking, I think, is so precious. And at least from my side, reading books on these topics or watching Ali's old videos, it does tend to put me back in my shell with some of my ideas, because I thought, geez, this book or this guy has it all figured out. What I always forgot was how many hours went into editing these ideas and working on them before finally presenting them. And what I think is so valuable about this podcast is that none of this happens beforehand. All the editing and thinking and iterating on the idea happens in the podcast itself. Now, I know Ali and Taim say that they should do more prep for the podcast, but to that I say, please don't. It's great hearing raw ideas and listening to them being worked on live. And listening to an episode just feels like a conversation. I always wish they could hear my point of view though, but then Ali would just interrupt me with a quote from a book or something. But what I do want to make clear is I rarely fangirl over things. I'm not into movies. I don't really watch Netflix shows. I don't follow celebrities. But these two guys, I will fangirl over. And you should too. If you haven't checked out the podcast yet, please turn this video off and go have a listen. The most recent episode about the meaning of work with Derek Sivers was really good and probably unintentionally quite funny. They go over Ali's troubles in searching for meaning in life now that he's a huge success. And even though you might say that a millionaire's existential struggle is quite unrelatable, it's a hilarious episode and it has everything. It has Taimur rocking his baby. It has Derek with a few awkward silences. On a serious note though, it has advice from all three, which I can contextualize to my own problems, and listening to them has always helped me do this. So to Ali and Taim, if you're watching this, I just want to say thanks for all the episodes. They're a great source of inspiration and even just company. Whenever I feel lonely or a bit confused, I listen to one of your old episodes, and it's just like having two friends right there in my ear. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it's true. Right now, I'm actually working as a chef in the French Alps, which is a bit of a stretch having just graduated from Oxford Engineering. But I'm following my passions, and your podcast helps me rationalize some of the fears I do have about my own career and how I spend my time. So thank you, and please keep making more episodes. To Ali, thank you for giving me some tips and advice while studying and being a great source of inspiration to apply to and now graduate from Oxford. If anyone's still watching this, stop and head over to Ali's channel and look at his early videos if you want some more inspiration on studying or applying to university. And to Taim, thank you for always providing very meaningful advice and even opening my eyes to some interesting new topics, like the kitchen bin or your philosophy on kids. Hopefully I meet you guys one day, but until then, good luck with all your exciting new projects in work and in life. Goodbye.